All right, Rebecca, do you want to say any introductory words?
Yeah, I just want to welcome everyone. I'm Rebecca White. I'm the GSA president. So we try to do this workshop as often as we can to help all of the students who are writing dissertations and theses every semester. And we are glad you're here to learn. This is a great workshop, and we have some really wonderful people leading it. We have Dr. Kuralt and we have Daniela. And so they're going to be able to give you lots of really good information and answer your questions, even if you have very specific questions about your particular project.
Yeah, and in fact, that's like the biggest advantage of actually coming to the workshop live is that you can talk to the two of us and get your questions answered now, rather than watching the recording later, hoping that we answered your questions, and then if not, having to come track us down.
Or heaven forbid, not getting your question answered until you go through formatting check. So.
Right. Well, welcome everybody. I thank you for taking time out of your evening to spend time with us. I think this is going to be a helpful workshop to you, regardless of whether you are defending your thesis or dissertation this semester or not. So I'm Dr. Karen Kuralt. I'm the Associate Dean of the Graduate School. With me today is Daniela De Hagani. She is a graduate school in the she's a graduate student in the program of Mass Communications, and she is the dissertation and thesis editor. So when you send your dissertation or thesis for formatting check, you are sending it to Daniela, and she is occasionally assisted by Nicole Godfrey. So I want to start today by talking about some basics about the process of submitting your materials for formatting check, and Daniela is going to jump in periodically and make sure that I say everything correctly because she's the one who's most directly involved in the process. You are welcome at any time to either unmute yourself to ask questions or use the little raise hand reaction button down at the bottom of your screen, or to put questions in the chat. So while I'm talking, Daniela will be watching the chat, and she can either answer your questions directly there, or she can kick them out to me to discuss with the entire group. But our number one objective is for you to feel confident about how the process works and get all of your questions answered so that this can go as smoothly for you as possible. All right, the very first thing for all of you to know is that we publish a dissertation and thesis guideline document on the graduate school website. I'm going to share my screen so I can show you how to get to that. Everything that we talk about in today's workshop is located in that guidebook. Okay, so if you are on the graduate school webpage, and can all of you see my graduate school webpage? Okay, good. All right. Come up here along this top navigation menu and click on the button Current Students. And you'll notice that the third bullet point under Resources for Current Graduate Students is the Dissertation and Thesis Guidelines. That will take you to this general information, which, by the way, the fall 2021 version of this workshop is sitting right here on the page. So one of the great things about the pandemic, if there could be said to be anything great about the pandemic, is now we record Zoom stuff all the time. So you can go back and watch either this workshop or the one from fall 2021 anytime you need to, if you want to review any part of what we're going to do today. All right, so then notice here's this link right here under general information that takes you to the actual PDF of the dissertation and thesis guidelines. Now you'll notice that it says 2018 to 2019, despite the fact that it is now 2022. This is our current set of guidelines. However, we will be publishing a new version of the dissertation and thesis guidelines by the end of this semester, we suspect. So if you are not graduating this semester, be sure and look for the new version. And in fact, in a moment, I'm going to go over with you some of the stuff that's going to be covered in the new version. But you'll see there's a nice table of contents so that you can find the stuff that is specifically relevant to you. Really important stuff that comes here in the form area, because that talks about all the formatting stuff that we're going to do. Okay, any questions about where to find those guidelines? Okay, I'm going to stop that share for a moment. Okay, so when this process begins is literally as soon as you start putting together pieces of your thesis. There's never too early for you to begin formatting. I recommend, if you have not already begun writing your thesis or dissertation, that you go ahead and put it in the correct format right from the beginning, because it'll save you a huge amount of time. I also have a Word document that I will be sharing on screen today, and that will be emailed to all of you, that you can use to adapt some of what we're going to do today. So for example, the spacing on your cover page and your signature pages, like you won't have to make that up out of the air. You can literally just reuse those pages. You will still have to do some of the formatting though, because every person's project is different. The kinds of people they have on their committees are different. The way that you know, how many pages each person has at the beginning of their process is different. So you are still going to have to make some significant adaptations, which is why y'all are here today to learn this. Okay, let me share the actual dissertation and thesis guidelines, and let's talk a little bit about timeline. Okay, so this is table 1 on page 5 of the current thesis and dissertation guidelines. And I can tell you right now some of the stuff that's going to change that you can ignore. So this step 1, check that your program has submitted the appointment of supervisory committee form. It wouldn't hurt for you to ask your chair about that, but quite frankly, you're not responsible for any of that supervisory committee paperwork anymore. So way back when we very first started doing this process, these forms were in paper, and people actually physically had to carry them around to their committee members to get signatures. Now, everything having to do with the creation of the committee and then signing off on either the proposal defense or the actual final defense happens in Argos electronically. So you do not have to worry about carrying around any of this paperwork to get signatures. So your second step, of course, is to apply for graduation, usually at the beginning of the term that you are scheduled to graduate. Everybody who is planning to graduate this semester, you should already have applied. If but for any reason you missed that application to graduate, it's too late to turn it in at this point. You'll have to wait and graduate in the summer. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't still have your defense. In fact, I encourage you to go ahead and have your defense like as soon as your committee is willing to let you have it. But be aware that if you miss the deadline for applying for graduation in any given semester, you end up having to wait till the following semester. Okay. Next step is to schedule your thesis or dissertation defense. Actually, let me make this a little bigger so it's easier for people to see. Oh, go ahead, Miriam.
I have a question. I want to graduate this summer.
Okay.
I went to the my boss account, but there wasn't any option for applying for summer yet.
Okay, yeah, I think you're probably correct. And I'm not exactly sure at what point Records is going to open the summer application. It might not be until late May, about the time that summer starts. So I would check back again and keep checking. I believe that the deadline to apply for graduation for summer is going to be around July 5th.
Okay, thank
That
you.
is a great question, and thank you for asking it. Are there other questions about applying for graduation? Because this is an extremely important step, and I have had students in the past miss the deadline, and it's heartbreaking. So if I can help you at all with this, I'm glad to do so.
I joined late, so you may have already covered this, but will we get a copy of this, like what the document we're seeing now?
Yes, so this document that I'm showing you is actually posted on the graduate school website. So if you will go to grad school or ualr.edu/grad school, click on the link at the top that says current students, and then the third link on the resources page is the thesis and dissertation guidelines area. And this is the 5th page of that document.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so scheduling your thesis or dissertation defense, obviously that can only happen when your committee is ready to go. Be aware, though, that you have to defend by certain dates each semester in order for your graduation application to be processed. So for example, usually the dates are December 1st for fall, May 1st for spring, and August 1st for summer. So you must have your defense on or before those dates to graduate in a given semester. So even if you applied for graduation, if you don't get your defense in before that date, then again, you're going to have to defer it. The good news is that it's really not a big deal to decline a graduation application. So my personal advice to you is, if you think there is any chance you are graduating in a semester, go ahead and apply, because it doesn't cause very much extra paperwork if we have to reschedule it. It's much better to apply and later end up declining it than it is to not apply. Now, every time that the first of the month falls on a weekend, then the date gets bumped to the next Monday. So the good news for those of you who are planning to defend this semester is you get an extra day, because May 1st is a Sunday. So your deadline is May the 2nd this year. Now, once you have scheduled your defense, immediately after you have the defense, and I mean, if you defend on May the 2nd, you better do it like literally immediately after your defense. Submit one original copy of your defended thesis or dissertation for review. You email it to us. So you'll email it to GradTD, that stands for Grad Thesis and Dissertation, gradtdreview@ualr.edu. before 5 p.m. on that final date. Now, again, if you hold your defense earlier, don't wait until that last day to send it to us. Send it to us as soon as that sucker is defended. And that's when your review process starts. Now, the good news is, as long as you get it to us by 5 p.m. on that last date, then you're going to satisfy the graduation requirement. It doesn't matter at that point how long it takes us to get back to you with things that you need to revise. You're still going to make it. So at that point, you can just kind of go, whew, done it. And know that it's just going to take a little extra time to process. Please be aware that it's literally mostly Daniela with occasional help from Nicole doing those formatting checks. So imagine all of you suddenly graduating at once, and it's just one or two people who are processing. Please, please be patient with them, because the closer you submit it to the deadlines, the more they are struggling to get stuff done. Go ahead, Daniela.
Okay, so I have a question. Miriam had sent me an email saying that it was stated on the, I don't know where she found this, but it says that there's no commencement ceremony held during the summer term.
That is true.
So if they do want to walk, what, like, I don't really know what my question is. I think she
Well,
said,
your question is can they walk if they're graduating in the summer? And the answer is yes.
Right.
So, and it's your choice about when you walk. So you can choose to walk in the spring if you want to. Like, people imagine that there's somebody standing there at commencement looking to see, did you satisfy all your requirements before you walk across the stage? The truth is that never happens. So the biggest check, right, is if you are a doctoral student, you need to let your committee chair know if you're going to be there, because they need to be able to hood you. So there's a special ceremony. You guys get to cross the stage before anybody else. And the chair of your committee actually puts your PhD hood onto you at the ceremony to signify you reaching this great achievement. So you need to let your committee chair know whether you want to walk in the spring or whether you want to walk in the fall, so that that person also comes to the ceremony. They'll even get in the line to go into the auditorium with you. And nobody will care. Like, if you choose to walk early, great. If you choose to wait till fall, great. Just let us know which one you're going to do. That's a great question.
Excuse me, I want to do it in the spring because probably I'm not here in the fall.
Right.
But I asked Dana Ball in my department. She said you cannot do that in the spring. It's not possible.
Oh, shoot. Are you a doctoral graduate?
Yes.
Crap. Okay, so I just realized, you're right, doctoral graduates can't walk early. That's so frustrating because they don't want you to do the hooding ceremony before you're actually finished.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
So-
that's very disappointing. So what I said applies to master's students, but doesn't apply to doctoral students. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, so there is no way I can participate in the ceremony for spring.
Right.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
It's okay. I love to do that, but it's okay.
Yeah, no, and I feel you too. I didn't get to participate in my own PhD ceremony, and I really wish I had had that chance. Samuel, it looks like you have a question.
Hi, good afternoon. I mean, good evening. I have a question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So my question is, can you change your supervisors?
Well, how close are you to being finished?
No, like maybe what is the deadline or the timeline of you changing your supervisor when you
So-
start?
Potentially changing your supervisor could be a huge deal because first of all, you have to very gently inform your current supervisor that you would like to make the change, and then you have to get somebody else to agree to do it. This can be a very sticky situation depending on how they feel about you making the change. Now, if everybody's happy about you making the change, then literally you could do that anytime. But I mean, understand that the chair of your committee has all the power over your dissertation or thesis. And so if you change projects to somebody who has a different specialty, they could possibly make you change your research. If you have to satisfy the new person completely, so it can add extra work to you. But having said that, I would rather have you change to someone you work well with and who is a good fit for your project than to stick with somebody who you do not have a good relationship with. Because let me tell you, there is nothing more miserable than trying to suffer through your thesis or dissertation with somebody that you are not getting along with or who is not giving you good feedback. So I don't know how much you want to get into your individual specifics, Samuel. If you would prefer to email me privately and set up a time to discuss, we can, or feel free to ask additional questions if you're comfortable sharing them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I will probably email you personally. Then that was well said. I also want to ask, what about your panel? Could you at any point in time change anybody in your panel?
Yeah, I mean, same things kind of apply, although with lesser dramatic consequences, because obviously they don't affect your life quite as personally. But yes, I mean, one of my jobs as associate dean of the grad school is to help students who are in situations with their supervisors to figure out the best way to go about this process. So I am happy to talk to any of you who have concerns in that regard. Okay, Cole, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Just real quick. In regards to the like getting the signatures from the advisory. So do you know Dr. Ghosh?
By email. I've never actually met him in person.
Okay. Well, he emailed me the advisory form and told me that I need to like physically get the signatures. So I guess
so that's not right.
So I guess what do I need to do?
Okay, forward me that email if you would,
Okay.
and I will respond to it. So my email address is K, M as in Michelle, Kuralt, that's Kuralt at
Okay.
ualr.edu. And actually, Danielle, if you have a moment to type my email address into the chat, that would be great.
That
Because
signature page, is that the one that goes to ProQuest? Is that the one you're talking about?
I think he's talking about the supervisory committee form. Is that right, Cole?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, so we do not use paper supervisory committee forms at all. We certainly do not need physical committee signatures on. Well, okay, wait a minute.
We
So we do not require that, but let me check with Dr. Barry, who's the dean of the graduate school, because he is originally from the chemistry department. And
Okay.
so if for some reason chemistry requires that, but the grad school doesn't, then I need to know about that.
Okay. Yeah, that could be.
But either way, forward me that email and then that'll be the beginning and then we'll track that down for you. I'm really glad you asked.
Okay. Sounds good.
This is great. Do any of you have any other questions about setting your defense or paperwork or any of these things that ironically have nothing to do with the actual formatting, but that are absolutely important to your completion of this process?
Yes, do we submit a Word document to the grad school, to the email provided in the guidelines here, or a PDF?
I believe, go ahead, Danielle.
Send it to me, please.
Well, he's just
So-
saying Word or PDF.
Oh, send it as a PDF.
Okay, so as
Okay.
and then when we upload it to ProQuest, also it will be a PDF.
Yes.
Yes.
Submit
Okay.
everything as a PDF only because when you submit it in a, if you submit it in any other type of format, sometimes the formatting gets
Messed up.
messed up and something will be on a page and then we'll have a whole conversation of why is this on that page? And you're gonna tell me that, no, it doesn't look like that for me, but it looks like that for me. So it's just easier if it's in a PDF because it'll be the same throughout.
Okay, so I would expect that you'll probably send me back a PDF with some comments or something like that if there is a problem with formatting.
So I won't make any revisions to your copy. You're gonna be the one to do that. I just do and like a doc of
Okay.
what to correct on each. And at the
Oh.
bottom of, at the top of that doc is gonna be a link to the thesis and format guidelines
Okay.
that you can refer to every time if you have a question on what page I'm talking about. But generally, it'll just be through ProQuest. You'll get a doc that says minor revisions are requested. You'll just open the document and it'll be a page from me saying title page, this is what you need to fix. Committee page, this is what you need to fix.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank
Uh-huh.
you. That's a great question. Yeah, sending stuff all in PDF just saves us so many headaches. Okay, so this would probably be a good time for us to mention that although we cannot pass you for formatting check until after your defense, you are welcome to make an appointment with me or Daniela or Nicole to talk about how to get your formatting right long before you send it to us for formatting check. So Daniela will take Zoom appointments, for example, and then if you have issues that either Daniela or Nicole can't resolve for you, I'm also happy to. I've helped many, many students with this formatting process. So even though, let me clarify, you cannot submit your official copy to pass the formatting check until after your defense. Like if you've started your formatting before your defense, you are welcome to set up an appointment with us to discuss it and to get help on anything you're struggling with. So don't ever feel like you're out there by yourself, having to bang your head against the wall. We are always happy to help you. And here's another piece of good news related to that. So let's say you can't get your formatting exactly right. And you're like, oh man, does this mean I can't submit it for formatting check? Oh, heck no. Please just submit it for formatting check. The most important thing is that you send it to us by that deadline, because then you have met the deadline. And that is the only thing that's important. After that, like we'll send you as many changes as you need to get it fixed. And you're still going to graduate, right? It's still going to be okay. So don't cause yourself huge amounts of stress over this. Do the very best you can, submit what you've got by that deadline, and we will help you fix it afterwards. Is there anything you'd like to add about that, Daniela?
I think Miriam had a question. Her
Yes,
hand.
go ahead.
So we can submit our document before our defense for you just to have an overall review and help us to do formatting ready and save us time. Is it correct?
If you've got specific questions or you're having problems getting the formatting to work, I'll give you a piece of advice that a research librarian gave me about doing research in the library. And he used to say all the time, look, if you've spent half an hour trying to fix a problem and you cannot fix it, do not waste any more of your own time on that. Just contact us and say, I can't get, and you know what the number one thing is going to be? It's going to be page numbers. For which reason, let me just say, watch the page number part of this demo over and over again, because literally we show you everything you need to know in there. But seriously, if you cannot get those page numbers right, don't spend more than half an hour trying. Just get in touch with us and we'll help you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
basically, Mariam, all we look at for formatting is like page, oh, I don't remember the exact page numbers, but it's like page 1 through like chapter 1 of your submission. So after chapter 1, we don't look at formatting. That's like with
But
you
we
and
look
your
at,
guide.
yeah, we look at margins, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just to make sure all of that's like correct, like your document margins. But really what we look at is page like 1 through that. And you can send that at any time because it
Okay.
doesn't really rely on the
Committee.
rest of your document. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. It's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I encourage people to take advantage of that, because the more that you've got it in shape by the deadline, the faster your formatting check is going to go. And be aware too, just in general, because some people are surprised, it will still take about 6 to 8 weeks for your degree to show up on your transcript. And again, that's because that, regardless of what happens with us on the formatting check. So we put a note on your record as you're going through whether or not you actually have uploaded the stuff to ProQuest. So by the way, don't forget to upload the stuff to ProQuest after you do your revisions. Because if you forget to upload the stuff to ProQuest after you do your revisions, you can't get your transcript or your diploma. And I kid you not, there are some people that we have graduated, like they officially have their degrees, but they cannot get their diploma or their transcript to prove it because they never did their ProQuest upload, which I'm like, that's dumb. So make sure that you complete the upload, but then as soon as you do, and it's approved, we will remove the hold on your transcript. But of course, the entire rest of the university is also applied to graduate, undergrads and grads, and the records office is processing those. It's hundreds of people every semester. So they have a dream that one day it will only take them, 3 to 4 weeks to process registration. But in the meantime, it may be 6 to 8 weeks before you actually see the degree on your transcript and get a physical diploma mailed to you. Now, if you should have an employment situation where you need to show proof that you completed your degree requirements, the first thing I would do is contact your graduate coordinator, because they are authorized to write a letter to your employer saying, I certify that this student has satisfied all requirements for the degree and has been processed for graduation. And most employers are 100% happy to have that. If you ever have an employer, though, who says, I don't care what your advisor says, I need to hear it from the graduate school, well, then I'll write the letter for you. So send me an email saying I need a letter, and they won't accept one from my graduate coordinator, and we'll take care of that. Do you have any question about that part of the process? Okay, good. All right, so you defend, you send us your official copy for the formatting check. Within a week or two, we try to get back to you. 2 weeks is usually our outside limit. So usually it will not take longer than 2 weeks. If for any reason you don't hear from us in 2 weeks, please email us and say, I sent you my thing, so that we can go back. Because again, we get in, and I'd be lying if I said we never lose a notification. So you're not bothering us. You can ask us. We send you back the comments, you make the revisions, you upload it to ProQuest. Now, be aware that once you do the upload into ProQuest, which is free, so there's no reason to, the only thing that ProQuest ever charges you for is if you want to register copyright for your work. And that I think is about $75. But you don't have to register copyright for your work if you just want to be done with this process. So you can upload it for free. Then be aware that Daniela is going to get a notification saying it's there, and she's going to check to make sure that you actually did what you asked her to do, what she asked you to do. And also your chair is going to check and say, did you make all the revisions that the committee asked for? Because the committee may ask for stuff related to your research. We're only going to say for stuff about your formatting, but you have to make both people happy before that hold gets lifted.
I have something to say real quick. So
Go ahead.
with the sometimes you do have to remind me that's a fault I have. I'm not perfect, but sometimes when everybody starts uploading their stuff so fast, I can sometimes kind of get sidetracked on who I was keeping up with and who I really do try to keep up with everybody. But sometimes if like you submitted for corrections a long time ago and then you never corrected your document, it's very likely that I'm going to forget because we're not on the same track. So just send an email reminding, like we had one student yesterday that I had to talk to that submitted from July of last year and still hadn't submitted to ProQuest with any of the corrections. And she didn't know that she hadn't gotten an email from ProQuest. You always get an email when I send you corrections. You get an email from ProQuest saying minor revisions have been requested. She never got that email. So either there was a glitch or it just got lost in her email, but she never got that. So she didn't know that she had anything in there. So just if there's more than, if you don't hear from me for more than a week, just send a little email like, hey, what's going on? Just making sure everything's going okay. Did you have a question, Christine?
I'm doing some videos in mine. Do I include those when I send into ProQuest, or does that not, I mean, how does that work if you're doing videos?
Put links to the videos.
Put links, okay.
Because they'll be able to click them from within the PDF.
All right, I just want to make sure. I'm like, how does that work? So, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
no, that's super cool that you're doing a multimedia thing, and we have a way to accommodate just about everything that you guys can possibly do in a dissertation or thesis. So,
All right, thank you.
good question. Okay, so we have reached the end of the required steps of the process. Now, I don't know of any programs that require you to have your thesis or dissertation bound anymore. Daniela, have you heard from any that require it?
No, I haven't heard from any. I think it's more of just like an individual
Yeah,
option
we all-
or your advisor, you know.
yeah, go ahead, Miriam.
How can you please remind me again how we should do ProQuest?
Okay, so
I'll send the link.
oh, go ahead, Daniela.
I'll send the link in the chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is a description in this thesis and dissertation guide of what page you go to upload your PDF. And uploading it is just the same as you would do an email attachment for the most part.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Okay, so like I said, I don't believe there are any programs left on campus that require students to bind their thesis or dissertation. However, some people like to do it just because it looks really nice. And it's it's a beautiful physical memento of your process to have. So if for some reason you decide that you would like to have your thesis or dissertation bound, first of all, be aware that you'll have slightly different margin requirements because you're required to leave a little extra space on the left for where they're going to crimp the pages together. It would be helpful if you're planning to have it bound to mention that in your email to Daniela when you send it for review. That way she's sure to catch that. And then here's what you need to do to get the binding done. So this is stupid, and I don't know why our bindery requires this, but they will not print it for you and bind it. They want you to send them the hard copy. So after all your formatting is done, you put your 1.5 inches of margin on the left and you physically print the sucker out. And then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take it over to the cashier's office in the bottom floor of the student services building. I think they're going to ask you for, I want to say $25 a copy for the binding. So you'll pay that there for however many copies you want. Then you take the receipt that they give you and your hard copies and you physically carry them over to our offices on the 5th floor of the Ottenheimer Library. So as you get off the elevator, you'll go to the left and you'll see a little sign that says Graduate School Reception Office. We will take your hard copies and your receipt and we will take care of shipping them for you. And we will notify you when they come back and they're bound. Be aware that typically it takes 3 to 4 weeks for us to get bound copies back. So it'll be about a month after you give us the physical copies for us to notify you that they're ready for you to pick up. Also be aware that if you give your copies to us at kind of an off time, so like you can have them bound anytime, but the problem is that the bindery charges us $125 per shipment, regardless of how many student manuscripts we put in that shipment. So we are always going to wait until we've got at least 5, because otherwise we end up owing them money. So the best time to do it is as close after your defense and after you've passed formatting check as possible, because then of course everybody else who graduated at the same time will be also doing it, and we'll send them out in great big bunches. Later, we might have to wait until we get 5 before we can send it out. Any questions about binding? Okay. So I'm going to stop the share.
Oh, did you already mention the margins on the binding? Like if they want to bind?
I did. And in fact, I encourage them to email you if they're binding, just to let you know that that's why the margins are different.
And I put the thesis and dissertation guidelines in the chat as a PDF if you guys want to go ahead and
Oh,
download it
good.
now.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so now we're ready to actually talk about the formatting process. I am actually going to show you on my screen step by step what you need to do to get your formatting correct. Each of you may have slightly different circumstances, so again, feel free to interject your questions, and I will give you the handouts for both this formatting, this step-by-step instructions for formatting, and the template that I'm doing the formatting on, so that you can make your process a little quicker and easier. Okay, let's reshare. Let's see first, let's switch.
Mariam, do you have another question?
No, I
No.
think her hand is still up from.
Oh, okay. Let me lower it. Sorry.
Okay, so here we are on the instructions for formatting your thesis in Word. Step 1 is setting your margins. So again, if you plan to have the thesis or dissertation bound, set your left margin to 1.5 inches with the top, bottom, and right margins at 1 inch. If you're not binding, then your margins can be 1 inch on all sides. Step 2, you're going to create your front matter. Now, in the actual thesis and dissertation guidelines, there's this giant long table of which pages get numbered and what numbers they get. And I personally find that table just like a little overwhelming. So here's a different way for you to look at it. Okay, so anything that I've got in this little bulleted list in bold, you are required to have. You cannot pass formatting check without those pages. Okay. Items in plain text might be required depending on your particular project, and we'll talk through that in a moment. If something is in brackets, like you notice dedication, acknowledgements, and preface, those are purely optional. So nobody is required to have those, but if you do choose to have them, here's where you put them. Okay, so these things go in this order: title page, copyright page, signature page, fair use and duplication release, abstract, dedication if you choose to have it, acknowledgements if you choose to have it, protocol approval statement required if you had a protocol approval. And by protocol approval, I mean if you did human subjects research, animal research, or hazardous materials research. So you know that you have to go through a special panel to get them to approve from the university that your methodology showed appropriate care for human subjects, animals, or biohazardous materials. That protocol statement you actually turn into a PDF page and stick into this front matter. Now, confusing part 1, you don't number any of these pages. So there should not be a page 1 on your title page. There should not be a page number on any of these pages above the dotted line. Okay, below the dotted line, these pages get numbered, but you number them starting as if you had counted these pages. So notice, for example, that if I don't need either the dedication acknowledgements or protocol approval statements, then technically title page would be 1, copyright page is 2, signature page is 3, fair use and duplication is 4, abstract is 5, and table of contents is 6. So the page number that would appear on the table of contents would be little Roman numeral 6. And then everything goes forward until you get to the first page. Now, if you have any figures or illustrations, any diagrams, any photos, then you need a list of figures or illustrations, which is basically a table of contents for your diagrams. If you have tables in your project, for whatever reason, they don't get listed in the same thing as the illustrations and diagrams and photos, they get their own table of contents. And then some of your chairs may want you to have a list of symbols, abbreviations, or vocabulary terms, nomenclature. That's where that would go if they require you to have that. And then you're allowed to have a preface, but very few people take advantage of that. Okay, so you count these pages, but you do not put page numbers on them. These page numbers, you're going to put little Roman numerals. And we're not going to do that until we get to step 4. Okay, so let's switch documents. Let's actually switch into the Word document and talk about what needs to be on these front matter pages before you format your thesis text. And let's switch the view up a little bit. Okay. So here we are on the title page of your thesis or dissertation. Now, please note that it is important to get right whether or not is a thesis or dissertation. So you notice in here, in this format, I've got it as thesis. And that's because I was a coordinator for a master's program and all my students were writing thesis projects. Every place that the word thesis appears, you will need to change to dissertation if you are writing a dissertation. Okay, I have set this up so that the spacing is all exactly what it needs to be. So you just need to erase out pieces of this and put your stuff in. Okay, so at the top, you're going to type the complete title of your document here in all caps, and you're not going to leave these brackets on. So brackets are things that I've marked for you to fill in. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to put on my cap lock, and I'm going to type all right, so my brilliant dissertation, 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears. Okay, I'm pretending this is a dissertation, so I know that I need to come into this next little block and change this to dissertation. If you are writing a thesis, and take off your caps lock. If you're doing a thesis, just leave that alone. Okay, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. In partial fulfillment for of requirements for the degree of, and you're going to type your full degree title in all caps. So again, pretending that this is a dissertation, I'm going to say for the, okay, so notice if you're a PhD, you type out Doctor of Philosophy, or whatever your title is, in your program title, which, by the way, you need to check and find out what the correct title is for your program. So whether it's applied science, whether it's dyslexia studies, reading, whatever your program is, which may not be the same as your department title. So make sure that you ask your coordinator if you have any questions. So for example, if I'm in professional and technical writing, I would type here, and notice that I'm out of all caps right now. Okay, so the professional and technical writing program is in the Department of Rhetoric and Writing, in the College of Communications, Humanities. This is a long one. Arts, oops, can't spell humanities. Arts, social sciences, and education. That's CHASE for all of you who know the acronym, okay? And actually, I think they prefer communication singular. Double check this title again with your graduate coordinator. In CHASE, be aware it's communication singular, social sciences plural. You have to have the correct name of your college in here. Okay, you're going to type the month and year of your graduation. There are only 3 options for this. It doesn't matter when you have your defense. It matters what the deadline is. So for example, if you are graduating this semester, you type here May 2022. If you're graduating in the summer, you type August 2022. If you're graduating in the fall, you type December 2022. So it has only to do with the semester. It has nothing to do with when you actually had your defense. Here, you are going to type your full name as it appears on university records, which means you may need to go to BOSS and find out what name is on record for you. You are stuck with using whatever is in BOSS unless you go to records and registration and submit a name change form. So for those of you who are graduating this semester, you're kind of pushing the deadline to possibly get your name changed if you want something different to appear on your thesis or dissertation. Still worth looking into. Otherwise, you got to type your whole name the way it appears. My name in BOSS is my whole name, including my middle name. So I type out Karen Michelle Kuralt, and then you type your previous degrees, awarding institutions, and conferral years here. So for me, this would be M.A., University of Utah, 1993, B.A., University of Utah, 1991. Okay. You put whatever needs to go there. If your university is from another country, you can add the country in addition to the university name if you think that clarifies where it is. If you're within the United States, this is all you need. Okay, let me pause at this time and ask, do you have any questions about filling out any parts of the cover page?
Yes, Dr. Kuralt, at the end, when adding previous credentials and degrees, first, where do I put the country if my previous degree is from a different country?
Put it right after the institution name, right, Daniela?
Yeah, I would put the degree, the location of the degree, and then if it's out of the country, put like Germany, and then the
Yeah,
date.
so let's imagine that the University of Utah was in Australia, for example. You know, so I could put Sydney, Australia here if I needed to.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing is, instead of doing MA or MSc or BSc, is it okay to spell it out, or abbreviations are fine? Or we should
abbreviations are actually preferred by ProQuest.
Preferred. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Excellent questions. What other questions do you have? And Daniela, is there anything that you would like to particularly emphasize or comment on here?
Yes. So, you know, every time we have these recording sessions, I always have a story about someone that's just brought up like a whole bunch of questions.
Yep,
So
no, tell us your story. Stories are great. In fact, let me stop share so people can see you a little better.
Well, I would actually prefer it if you could share that page because it's about that page. So on this page, I would say there's about, just eyeballing it, I would say there's about 3 spaces between each section.
True, seems right.
Like 3 sections. just make sure the spaces are consistent. Like if you're gonna do 4, make sure you do 4 throughout the whole thing. If you're gonna do 3, make sure you do 3. And then can you scroll up just a little bit? So everything needs to be on the specific line that it is. So don't like at the bottom where it says of the College of Communication, Humanities, Arts, Social Sciences, and Education, that needs to be a whole line. Don't try to like press enter and then go to the next line. It needs to be exactly how this example is and the example on the thesis and dissertation guidelines. Because if you do that, then we're gonna tell you, no, it needs to be like this, and it can be kind of confusing. So just make sure that you go by either this or the guidelines, because this page specifically needs to be exactly like this.
Yeah, I apologize. I know it's a terrible thing to make you guys pay attention to this kind of level of editorial detail, like you're exhausted from everything that you've done to try to get your research to this point. And we understand, but these are not optional, that we have to make these corrections. And we do require you to pay attention to literally, how is it capitalized? How many spaces are between? Is it on the right line? So yeah, there's just no way to push back against that. It has to be done this way. Great story, Danielle. I appreciate you telling that. Any other questions before I leave this page?
Oh, and make sure the font is the same throughout the whole thing. Same size font, same type of font.
Yeah, no artistic license on the font stuff here. Generally speaking, that's good practice for your dissertation. Like if you started in Times New Roman, that's great, but then do the whole thing in Times New Roman, or do the whole thing in Arial or Cambria or Calibri, whatever you want to do. Please no Comic Sans. Please no Papyrus. All right, we're on the copyright page. Thankfully, this is a really easy page. Type your full name as it appears in university records. And the year of your degree, which is literally, like if you're graduating this semester, it's 2022. The end. Don't move that. Don't.
Yeah, make sure it's not, the text isn't at the very top of the page. You kind of want it, and it's really hard to describe this edit because I'll try to say, make sure you put some spaces at the top. Just
Yeah,
make
so
sure
it's
not in the
about
middle.
a third of the way down, I would say.
Yeah.
So a third is above, 2/3 below. Okay, now we're on probably one of the most messed up pages in the entire thing. And I understand that some of this is confusing because, for example, you know, the brackets are the stuff for you to fill in, and then you should delete this stuff that's in parentheses. We put the stuff in parentheses to remind you what the formatting should look like. Okay, so let's start with the easy stuff. So we're back up here, putting in the title of our document. Notice here, for whatever reason, it's not in all caps where it used to be in all caps. We're taking that out. My full name as it appears in university records. Surprise, surprise. Is approved by. Now notice that if I am indeed writing a dissertation rather than a thesis, I come in here and I change this to dissertation advisor and dissertation committee. If you're doing a thesis, just leave those alone. Okay. All right, so here you put the full name of your thesis advisor or dissertation advisor. If you have any questions about what their full name is, it is always appropriate to ask. It is not cool to misspell the name of your committee members and will not win you any brownie points. So I'm going to pretend that the chair of our department is my dissertation advisor, so that her full name is Joyce Locke Carter. And notice that as I am typing her name, I do not type Dr. Joyce Locke Carter. I do not type Joyce Locke Carter, PhD. Literally just her name. So when it says here, for example, Bob Smith, that's to remind you that it's just the name. So then you can take these parentheses out, take that whole line right away. All right. The next thing that we're going to add for Dr. Carter is her academic rank and department. Okay. This is their academic rank, not their job title. So even though Dr. Carter is the chair of rhetoric and writing, I am not going to type chair of rhetoric and writing. I am going to type her academic rank, which for most of you is going to be professor or associate professor. A few of you might have assistant professors, but by and large, most people are advised by a full or associate professor. She is professor of rhetoric and writing. Okay, so notice that that matches the example of professor of chemistry below. So now I can take away these parentheses and it goes away. You follow that pattern for every single member of your dissertation committee. All right, and we'll talk about a couple of different examples here. So I'm going to pick another person in my department and say George H. Jensen is my first committee member. And as it happens, he is also, oops, not italicized, he is also professor of rhetoric and writing.
I'm sorry, Dr. Kira. So middle names can be, what do you call it? Like when you just put like a first letter of the middle name.
Yeah, so you need to find, again, you have to find out your professor's particular preference for how they want their name listed. So, and what I typically use is, what do they use when they publish? Because that's really the purpose of this page, right? Is for you to show the renowned people in your field who are supporting your scholarship. So when Dr. Carter publishes, she always uses all three of her names. When Dr. Jensen publishes, he always abbreviates his middle initial. So you talk to them and make sure you get their names the way they want them.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent question. Thank you. Okay, now you may have some unusual committee members. So you might have some people, for example, who are not from UALR. If you've got somebody who's an outside member. So I'm going to pretend that somebody who advised me at Purdue is on my committee, and she happens to be retired. So again, I don't put that she's doctor or anything. I just put Janice Lauer. And now I'm going to put her academic rank, department, and her current institution. So she is emerita professor, which is how they indicate that she's retired, of English at Purdue University. Like so. Okay, so if you have somebody who is at another institution, this is how you list them. And again, if you need to list a location because your university that this person is at is outside the US, again, if I had to, I could list that Purdue is in West Lafayette, Indiana. That's also okay. All right, let's take another case. What if you have somebody on your committee who isn't employed at a university? Like, let's say they're an industry consultant and they do something else as their full-time job. Okay, so you're still going to do the full name of that person. So I'm going to choose Allison Nicholas. And I believe she is currently the recruiting director at First Orion. And so that's how I list her. Any questions about any situations that you have on your committees that are not covered by one of those examples? All right, you guys are suspiciously easy. Usually I've got somebody who's got an unusual situation. If it occurs to you later, don't, again, ask them first, because the rule is you go by the way they want to be listed. And then ask us if you're confused about typing in their affiliation. Okay, then at that point, you will need the name of your program coordinator. By now, this pattern should be getting pretty familiar to you.
Does anyone have any questions at all? We usually have a lot more questions.
I know, that's why I say this is suspicious. All right, when you get to this last part, don't touch this. All right, it's the way it's supposed to be. The graduate dean is Brian Berry, associate professor of chemistry. Do not put dean of the graduate school. Do not put anything else. Daniela, do you want to?
And please don't tell me that you found somewhere on the website for Euler that he is labeled as something else. He specifically wants to go by associate professor of chemistry, and that's what we're leaving it at.
Which, by the way, I mean, yes, it is true that he is mislisted as professor of chemistry on one of the chemistry pages. He has not actually been through the promotion process, though, so he is still associate professor of chemistry.
Dr. Gerald, so signature line or no signature line?
Okay, no signature line. So notice that when I take out all these things, like they're lined up perfectly across from their titles.
Okay.
The
Oh, okay, are we not doing this, the empty signature line?
Are you typically requiring signature lines? I don't think they have to do them. I think the only time they have to do them is if they want to
Have them binded?
yeah, and then it's your choice. So first of all, the reason we don't leave any places for people to sign on this page is that we do not want to upload any signatures to ProQuest. And so there's no point in leaving a line there for people to sign when we're not going to upload any signatures. Now, if you're going to have them bound and you want the signatures just because that's special to you, then you can come in here if you want to and make a line. Oops. Oh, no, I guess. All right. So this is how you'd have to do it. So I'd have to tab this over and then come in here, and I'm holding down the shift key and doing the underscore. So I can make a line if I want to. And then I can copy that and I can put that on other things, which, by the way, is the good way to do it because you want it to be consistent, same size of line across the top of everything. So I could do it like that. And, you know, we wouldn't decline it if you submitted it to us this way, but there's no point in you doing that if you're not actually going to get any physical signatures.
So I guess just like in your initial email to me, let me know if you're getting it bound or not, because that will save us a lot of time.
It sure will.
Thank you.
Okay, so, but for the most part, I'm just going to do that. We do not want to erase her name. All right, all neat. You have as many committee members as you need to. Some of you might have co-advisors or co-chairs. If so, somebody has to be like the main chair, and then you list the person who's your co-chair underneath them, but the format all stays the same. If for any reason you've got so many people on your committee that it goes to a second page, that's okay too. Just keep on in this format. Okay, any questions about the signature page before I leave it? All right, I'm going to move on. Okay, another easy page, the fair use and duplication page. Okay, so if I'm pretending this is a dissertation, I come in here and I change this from thesis to dissertation. Otherwise, leave it alone if you are a master's student. Is protected, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to touch anything else. The duplication part. Go ahead, Danielle.
Make sure that, sorry, I'm just kind of like jumping in. Make sure that fair use and duplication are bolded. There's a bunch of like tedious little things that you have to do. Just make sure that everything is literally like the example.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And then on here on duplication, make sure that you also change like the thesis or dissertation part of it. And the signature lines, you only need the line. You don't need to put the refuse permission for this thesis to be duplicated. You can just take that part off and then remove the word signature and just leave the signature line.
So do we need a line here if we're not printing, printing out the dissertation?
Yeah,
Told them to leave line.
so this is, in this section, you're saying if somebody were to come to the library itself and ask for a hard copy instead of, like, I don't know who would do that, like who would not get this from ProQuest? But if they did come physically to the library and say, I need a hard copy for whatever reason, would you let them make the hard copy? So if you are willing to give them permission, then you can completely take that off. Take this off. And that's all you need. Now, if for whatever reason you don't want them to get a hard copy, then take off all of this and do it like that. Take off that and change this, if you're a doctoral student, to dissertation. Like so. The end. Any questions about that? All right, let's keep scrolling. All right, now we're to the abstract. And again, here's another place where type it exactly the way it appears. So notice this is bold and italics. And let's see, it shouldn't be italics though, should it, Daniela? It's just bold, right?
The
full title of your dissertation?
No, it's not supposed to be in italics.
Okay, so I'm gonna unitalics.
Let me make sure. Yeah, it's not in italics.
Okay, good. Thank you for checking. By my name is appears in university records. And my graduation date, which remember is just the month and the year. Okay, then that you have your abstract stuff, and type the body of your abstract here, double space. Your abstracts for your dissertation should not be more than 350 words. Your abstract for a thesis should not be more than 150 words. Text only, no pictures. Make sure that it's left justified, but ragged right margin. And do not put a page number on this. Okay, let me also clarify too about the content of the abstract. So remember that the abstract is what most people are going to use to determine whether or not they want to download your thesis or dissertation and look at it as a possible source in their own research. That means this should not be just like a teaser. This should be a summary. It should actually contain all the important information about your project. So it should have something that says, what is the problem that you were researching? It should say what, in a sentence or two, what was your methodology? It should say in a sentence or two what your results were, a sentence or two to talk about why that was important. So you need to contain all the important information, and it should have in the abstract, be sure and use the kinds of words that you think people would type into a search engine to find your project. Because most of us, and now some of you are going to want to like embargo this for a couple of years because your data is super sensitive and you don't want the world to have it right now. And you can do that in ProQuest. You can embargo it for a couple of years, check with your chair and make sure that that's what they want you to do. But most of us are putting out our research because we want people to benefit from our research and we want them to have access to it. So try to write abstracts that will be as informative and that will help people find your work so that they can learn from it. Any questions about that page? Okay, let's keep going. All right. So now notice I haven't put the table of contents page in at this point. That's because the easiest thing to do to set up your table of contents is to actually start some of the text of your project, and then you can auto-generate the table of contents. All right. So I'm going to show you how you need to set up your formatting to your actual thesis text so that instead of you having to type out your table of contents by hand, you can do in a couple of clicks, get Word to make it for you. And not only will Word make it for you, but then you'll be able to update it if anything changes with, again, a couple of clicks. So it takes a little bit of extra effort on this front side to make it auto-generatable. But if you do it, it'll save you a ridiculous amount of time later. So I've just copied and pasted a bunch of paragraphs in here from a student from my program, and we're going to format her text as practice. Okay, so one of the first things you'll notice that is not correct about this formatting is that your thesis text is supposed to be double spaced all the way through. And you'll notice that she was doing this back in the day when she was getting it bound, so you can see her, well, actually her margin even looks too large. Like, is that, yeah, it is too large, because look, it's up. That looks like more than 1.5 inches, because like 1.5 inches would be back here. All right, so I'm going to highlight all this text. And I'm going to fix that margin. And I'm just going to do that by grabbing the little hanging indent thing and dragging that back 1/2 inch, drag the top part back 1/2 inch. Okay, so now there's 1 inch, and that should be 1.5. Okay, the next thing I have to fix is the spacing. So the spacing is supposed to be double spaced, and irritatingly, Word's defaults are no longer double spaced. So they have set it to a spacing that is attractive for Calibri, which is the default font, but this is not what you need it to be. So I'm coming here to the Home tab, and I'm going here to this little tiny arrow under Paragraph, which is where I can get paragraph settings. Something is weird about this document. Why does it say that this is -0.5? And I'm not going to pay that attention for the moment. Here are the two things that you need to pay attention to. Number one, this before and after spacing. So right now this is set up to put automatically 10 points of white space after the paragraph. And I want that to be nothing because I want it to be a true double space. So I'm going to click the down arrow and change that to nothing. And then right here in the line spacing, it says multiple at 1.15. I just want it to be literally double spaced. So I'm changing that to double. Then notice that goes away, and here's all this the way it's supposed to be, and I click OK. All right, great. Now we've got all this nice paragraph text that is double spaced, but you can't see any of my headings and subheadings. And the headings and subheadings are extremely important for the table of contents because that's what would appear in the table of contents, right? All right. So let's pretend that this is a heading 1. This is the start of a major section in one of my chapters. So well, actually, let's actually make a chapter heading. Right, because that's what I really want to be my heading 1. Chapter 1. Some cool stuff about workplace communication. All right, so what I want to do is I want to tell Word that this is a heading 1, and I'm going to do it using the styles menu up here. So you see all these cute little formatting things that change when I roll my cursor over them. All right, so I want this to be a heading 1. All right, so it makes me a heading 1 and it happens to center it, and I'm like, okay, but notice my double spacing went away. So I need to modify this heading 1 so that it follows the style guidelines. So I come into the heading 1 and I right click on it and I choose modify. And then you see it's putting the headings in Arial 14 bold. You can change that to be whatever your committee wants. And I'm going to come here to format and choose paragraph. And notice it's got before 24 points, which is ridiculous. Like, no, we're going to change that to 0. And line spacing, we got to change it back to double, and you're going to be sick of this command by the time we do it over and over again. Okay, okay. Now notice it's fixed. Okay, great. All right, so now my heading 2 typically is left aligned, and it's usually in a smaller but still bold font. So I'm going to highlight this, and the first thing I'm going to do is click the heading 2. Notice now it's indented it and it's italicized it, and I don't want any of those things. So again, I'm going to come in and modify the heading 2. Right click, modify, no italics. Oh, change the paragraph, no spacing before, double space. Okay, okay. And I'm gonna undo that indent. Is there a way to undo the indent from the heading? Two double space. I'm not seeing tabs. Nope, not tabs. All right, screw it. I'm going to do it manually. Come here. All right, now that's right. Okay, and now this is a subhead. This is going to be a heading 3 that is underneath the heading 1. So first, again, I apply the style, then I modify the style. And this one, let's say, since we're sticking with Arial headings, let's change that to Arial. Let's drop it to, well, let's make it a 12-point italics. I don't think I want it blue. Keep it black. Fix the spacing. Now, the good news is once you have done this, you never have to do it again. So the great thing is that Word is now going to remember that this is how I want my headings to look. And I've saved them in the actual style. So the style is going to apply consistently now. So watch this. This is great. All right, so let's say that this is another heading 3 underneath that same section. And the only thing that's going to be irritating is I don't know why it's doing this weird indent. But I am going to have to fix that part consistently. Here's another one. So notice now, I'm just clicking that heading 3 and it fixes all the fonts and stuff for me. So that's done, done, done. Okay, keep going. Let's say that this is another subheading 2. All right, that's good enough for now. All right, now here's the fun part. Okay, so now we're now going to auto-generate our table of contents. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the abstract page, and I'm going to put my cursor down here, and I'm going to, whoops, I don't want it. Well, yeah, no. I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to insert a page break. Insert page break. Now notice we've got a blank page between our abstract and our chapter 1. So now I'm going to click my cursor in here on the blank page. Oh, let's see. Yeah, no, this is the right thing. Okay. Okay, so now I'm on the references tab with my cursor sitting in the blank page. And I'm going to insert a table of contents. So notice my table of contents icon is over here in the left. And I'm going to pick automatic table 2 just for the heck of it, like so. And notice that it pops right in with my headings and stuff already in and page numbers. And the only thing that's screwy, right, is my page numbers are wrong. So it has started with what literally are, you know, that knows that this is page 7, even though we don't have any page numbers on anything. And now our last big challenge is to get these page numbers fixed and then update the table of contents so that it looks right. Okay, so this is the part that you need to watch closely and that you may need to watch more than once. Okay, the way that we create this, so notice that this stuff, everything before the table of contents is not supposed to have any page numbers. The table of contents gets a little Roman numeral down in the center bottom. And this page starts with Arabic numerals in the top right. Okay, so we have to do this with section breaks. We have to make each of these things be a separate section. All right, so I stick my cursor in the abstract page. And this time I'm going back to insert, or maybe no, I'm going to layout. Yeah, here we go. Layout breaks. I'm going to insert a next page section break. Okay, so you see my cursor jumped, but there's my abstract. Now, how do you know that this worked? Well, I double click in either the header or the footer of this document. So I'm going to click up here. And you know you've done it right if you see over here on the left, you see footer section 1, header section 2. So that, great, we have a break between the two sections. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to the footer for section 2, and I'm going to put in the page number for this section. So I double click down here like so. And I'm going to insert page number. So notice the page number thing is just to the right of the center here. I want it at the bottom of the page in the center, plain number 2. Okay, that's great, except we want it to be little Roman numeral 6, right? All right, so we highlight it. And we do format page numbers. Okay, and I'm going to change the number format from 1, 2, 3 to little Roman 1, 2, 3. Okay, the page number is continuing from the previous section. Yes, because we want it to be little Roman numeral 6. And I put it in there, and lo and behold, it is little Roman numeral 6. All right, great, except for, look, I scroll backwards and I've got page numbers in my bottoms again, which I don't want in the previous things. So now what we have to do is we have to break the link between section 2 and section 1 so that it stops copying stuff over. Okay, so I'm down here in the footer for section 2, and you see this little grayed out bar here that says link to previous. I'm going to unclick that. Okay, so now it's not linked to the previous thing anymore, and I scroll up here and I see my little page numbers and I just delete them just like that. Now look, no little page numbers, no little page numbers, all this front stuff, no little page numbers. But at the bottom of the table of contents, little Roman numeral 6. And what's great is, like, even if your table of contents now is multiple pages, it will continue doing little Roman numeral 7, little Roman numeral 8, which is exactly what you want to do for all of the rest of the stuff that goes until you get to page 1. All right, this is page 1. And so now we've got to do the section break again to keep it from copying the little Roman numerals over and let us do a completely different set of numbers. All right, so I come to the bottom of my table of contents. And I stick my cursor in wherever the end of my table of contents is. We come in here to layout. We do break. We do next page section break. All right, let's jump to the next page. We double click and make sure that it did it right. Look, there's the footer of section 2. There's the header of section 3. That's what we're looking for. We want separate sections. Okay, so now, right, I can do the same thing that I did before. I can put the page number up here in the right-hand corner this time. So now I come over here to insert, page number. We want the top of the page and we want the right corner. So there it is. Okay. It, of course, sticks it in the, and actually we need to scoot. I don't know what I've done to this document, but I've messed up its margins, something terrible. Scoot it over here to the corner, or not that corner. Sorry. Top of the page, right-hand corner. There we go. All right. Change the format again, like we did before. So now this one is going to be back to the Arabic numerals, like so. And notice here that we are going to change this, not continue from previous sections, start at page 1. Boom. All right, so far so good. We've got page 1, but oh, whoops, look, page numbers have ended up in this top corner. So you know what we have to do, right? We have to break the links to the previous sections. Okay, so here I am in this, and notice that the little link to previous box is gray again. Unclick. Okay, now we got to do it at the bottom of this one too to get rid of this page number. Notice as soon as I put it in the footer, link to previous is gray again. Unclick it, and then I delete this bottom page number, like so. And now go back and check and make sure that everything is right. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, no little page numbers in the bottom. And we scroll backwards. Still little Roman numeral 6. So congratulations, that is the hardest part, is just setting up those 3 section breaks and then unlinking the stuff from the previous header or footer so that you don't get repeat page numbers. Now that we've done that, we can close the header and footer. And let's go back to our table of contents. All right, so here we are on the table of contents. And as you see, none of these page numbers have updated, but now watch how easy it is to do. I just roll my little cursor over here and I click in the table of contents and I get this little box here that says, lo and behold, update table. And if the only thing that has changed is the page numbers, then I can leave this checked that says update page numbers only. And boom, there's my table of contents. And the great thing is that, you know, once you set, as long as you remember that when you type your headings in, that you're going to come up here and you're going to put a heading 1 for the chapter, a heading 2 for your next level of subheading, a heading 3 for the next level below that, etc. Then Word has put a little tag that lets it know where these headings are and what they say. So you can type as much as you want in this document, and as long as you put the heading styles on it, you can update the table, and all of your table of contents will auto-generate over and over again, no matter how many committee changes you have to do. So let's say that my committee, for whatever reason, hates this heading down here that I put for rhetorical situations and wants it to be about Bitzer's theory of situational communication. Okay, and then you're like, well, do I have to go back and type that on that other page? You sure do not. Scroll right back up here, click on here, update table, and hey, update table. And this time I do update entire table, so it'll know that to look for headings and not just page numbers. And boom, there's Bitzer's theory of situational communication right there. And that's it. That's really it. All the rest of it, you format just like you would any normal document. Do you have any questions about that process? Okay, if you do not have questions about that process specifically, do you have any specific things that you're worried about formatting for your dissertation that you're not sure how to do? Okay,
Y-
so
y-
once, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question regarding justified versus alignment, because so the in the word right here there are these four types of alignment versus justified. You're in the guidelines it's saying that it should be left justified, which
Correct.
means that it has to be justified and from the left.
Yeah, so you notice this little button that I've got point here. This is the align left
Yes.
button.
I noticed that usually other dissertations they use justified because it looks so crisp in the page. So I'm curious if is it okay to use justified?
We would prefer that you not. And the reason
Okay.
is that in order, let me actually show you what would happen if I justify this. So if I stick this in here and I justify, full justify, it stretches spacing between words. Now, fortunately, I don't have any true, and I should probably technically indent these paragraphs so you can tell where the paragraphs start. This isn't particularly egregious here, but sometimes it will like ridiculously stretch words to try to make them fit in that space. And also studies of the ways people read has shown that when you have line endings that end at different lengths, it actually helps people subconsciously remember where they are, so they read faster and they retain more. And that is why we recommend that you do left justify rather than full justify.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good question. What other questions do you guys have? Okay, let me stop the share. All right, just so you remember, all of these steps that I have talked you through here, first of all, you'll be able to go watch this video and watch them as many times as you need to. But also, we will email to you this thesis formatting handout that literally goes through. And even though it was for Word 2007, like I just did exactly all of these steps again in Word 2016, and it worked just fine. It'll work for Word 365 too. So every single step that we just did is in this handout, and you can follow it step by step. And then if you get lost, again, do not hesitate to contact me or Daniela or Nicole, and we will talk you through the process. I mean, the great thing about Zoom is you can be wherever you want to be, and we can be here, and you can share your screen with us, and we can tell you exactly what to click to fix the stuff. All right, if there are no further questions, then we are done for this evening. I thank you very much again for taking time out. I congratulate you on getting to the point where you are ready to think about formatting your thesis and dissertation. And Daniela and I are here for you anytime to help you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Have a great evening and hang in there these last few